But American history is a pendulum swinging from two extremes, the Great Awakenings, which usually used to be religious, and then Great Darkenings, which emphasize the more brutal, depraved nature of reality. At the conclusion of Great Darkenings is a discovery of the moral in nature. The moral in nature leads to a kind of puritanical moral fanaticism, which profoundly mistrusts nature and reality, and then it swings back to this rugged realism. It's getting more and more extreme as the United States is on its way to dissolution and civil war and collapse and so on and so on. These people who virtue signal and flaunt how unwoke and anti-woke they are offer nothing. They offer no moral authority. Moral authority is the most fundamental thing in the world. If you have no moral authority, you have no right to speak in public. Without moral authority, you need to just shut the fuck up and fuck off. Moral authority is the key to being able to have a voice in public. And the conservatives are hypocrites, the woke 1.0 people are hypocrites, so what are we actually talking about in terms of infrawoke and this new woke era of woke 2.0 that's coming? So, there's been two extremes across the history of what we call America. The extreme is the Great Awakenings and the Great Darkenings. The Great Awakenings have a strong moral bent. They're about moral superiority, elevating ourselves spiritually, fulfilling our moral obligations, and fulfilling the need to actually align our society with our principles and values in some kind of way. Although you might be tempted to think this is about left-wing versus right-wing, the Great Darkenings focus on kind of the opposite. The fact that a lot of the moral superiority that accompanies Great Awakenings is rooted in hypocrisy, and that the conclusion drawn is that, nature, reality is actually dark. It's profoundly dark. It's profoundly brutal. It's profoundly rugged. There's contradictions in it. Asmongold talking about he wants to kill all Palestinians and Iranians and Lebanese people. And just this general embrace of evil and depravity. Like, yeah, that's it. That Wojak or that whatever, that Soyjak who has like the smiley face and they're grinning with the teeth and shit. That's the kind of vibe of the Great Darkening that we've just experienced, right? And I think that there's a fatigue. People are fatigued from this. They're fatigued from this moral depravity, this complete absence of moral guidance or anything. So now we're coming upon a new era of a new Great Awakening in this country. So you can even call it woke 2.0, whatever. But it's not the same as woke 1.0. This is a dialectical process. Woke 1.0 is already discredited. It's already dead. It doesn't work anymore. These people are all on blue sky, and they've all turned dark woke. You know what dark woke actually means? Dark woke is just the woke 1.0 people caving into the fact that they are hypocrites who have no principles at all and have no moral leg to stand on. They don't have any woke. They're not actually woke. They've succumbed to the darkness. But what I'm more interested in is something I like to call infrawoke, which we need to be at the avant-garde in this new era. Yes, we're not woke in the traditional sense, but at the same time, we don't have a ready-made moral clarity. And anyone in our movement who pretends that they do is a fucking LARPer. Where do the morals come from? Where does the moral authority come from? A firm handshake and that's LARP. So where does the moral authority for our movement gonna come from? How do we know right from wrong? What is off limits and what is not off limits, right? What kind of behavior should we be policing and what kind of behavior should we just not give a shit about? And these are things we should take seriously because we're an army. Because we're an army. Whether we like it or not, in public, we're an army. They see us as an army. They see us as a horde. They see us as a cult. We need to have principles. Our principles need to be evident in who we are. We need to know how to be able to identify each other. Woke 1.0 had a very specific way of virtue signaling. They based it on what kind of words do you use? Do you use the bad words? Do you use the good words? It was very much focused on superficial language, okay? We need to have a different moral authority that is based on how we actually interact with people. Not so much the language that we use in every possible context, but what are we using it for, and toward what ends? Focusing on the actual purpose behind fucking interacting with people or talking to people. The whole thing about the 7 laws of the guerrilla army that I went over last stream, by the way, that's not optional. The burden falls on you if you reject these 7 laws. Because I am sick of people speaking on behalf of us that have nothing to do with this fucking vision. I am the leader of this movement for now. Who are you going to look to for your leadership? If not me. about exactly these kinds of things. No, I'm the leader of this movement. That's the North Star. If I say something, even if you don't like it and you disagree with it, the burden falls on you to oppose it. You can't just scoff it off and then pretend it's optional to listen to or not. I'm not here to be a weak leader. Do you understand? I'm your leader or I'm not your leader. If I'm going to be your fucking leader, don't take my words lightly. Do you understand? The left wing, if it's not desensitized to trifling, edgy words and stuff, you are going to be crushed by the right wing. They're just going to destroy you. All they have to do to defeat you is hold up signs that say the N-word with a hard R. And you're a white leftist. If you're not desensitized to these things, they're literally going to go on the battlefield, meet you on the street with these words, and it's going to like shatter your soul. It's going to shatter your heart. You're not going to have the resolve to stand and fight. But if you're like me and you roll your eyes and you just say, wow, how profoundly edgy, how profoundly shocking, then you can actually fight them. Why are you giving them weapons with which to defeat you and demoralize you? Be indifferent. Just roll your eyes. Like, why were you impressed by these? Why do you let them affect you? Don't let these words affect you. If you can allow these words to affect you, then the right wing, nihilist right wing, they're going to crush you. They're going to crush you because all they have to do is use mean words. And I know you tried to just get them banned off every platform, but that failed. The platforms are no longer censoring them. So you cannot ideologically confront the right wing if you're still being intimidated by these words and stuff, frankly. But that being said, let's talk about bad words. I don't think that bad words are completely unacceptable in any context. I just think that if you overdo them, it's like you're a child. First of all, here are some rules. Never, ever use a slur that you would not use in person. So anyone who says the N-word with a hard R, you want to know why it doesn't faze me or intimidate me or shatter my morale beyond the fact that I'm not a black American? It's because I know for a fact if you saw a black guy in real life, you would never say that shit. You're saying it to me on TikTok or something, but calm down, pussycat. You would never say that in real life to a black person. I know you're a bitch. You're a pussy. I know you would never use these words. So why would it impress me that you're using these words you would be scared to use offline? Because in the real world, black people, by and large, do not accept being called such a word. And if you decided to demean them and degrade them and call them this word, there would be consequences of that. Just like if you go to any man or any woman and you go try to demean them and disrespect them and humiliate them, you're asking for trouble. So it's not that such words should kill your morale. The only reason these edgy words even have anything is because of the tone policing and the political correctness in the first place. But now that we're past it and Woke 1.0 is dead, I have to tell you guys something, that spamming these bad words, it's cringe. It's not cringe because these words offend me. No, it's more like it's cringe because what are you trying to prove? Everyone knows you can say bad words. Most adults in this country use bad words. Me too, by the way. I say bad words all the time, especially in a humorous context. The key thing is it has to be funny, though. But when you're in public, just doing it so often, and I'm talking about like just so often, all you're doing is proving what? You're an edgelord? Oh, how edgy, how profound. It's cringe because it's a form of posturing. Why should that be our vibe? When we have a right-wing enemy, when the right wing is attacking us and opposing us, it's your duty to crush them, to devastate them. No limits at all when it comes to the language you can use to devastate, to destroy, and to attack the far right. And anyone who objects to this policy of ours is a fascist collaborator. What else can we call them? See, Infrawoke is not Woke 1.0. It's very different. I'm going to get into explaining what it is. It's very different, though. When it comes to the far right, you need to fucking be ready to destroy them even on their own terms. You need to absolutely not restrain yourself according to some leftist morality or political correctness when confronting the right-wing enemy. But I'm talking about the left. I'm talking about when it comes to confronting the left. When you're using and employing slurs to our leftist enemies, it's extremely cringe to me. It's extremely cringe. Because all you're doing is fighting the leftist inside of you. You're not actually effectively fighting or disarming our enemies that call themselves leftists when you're just using these words. These people are already profoundly angry, profoundly bitter, and are full of a profound degree of self-hatred. So when you are treating them the same way that we treat the right wing, you're just giving in to their fetish. You know, they actually kind of enjoy it. They actually kind of enjoy it, if I'm being honest with you. It's almost like you are kind of sus. It's a little zesty of you to just engage with them in this way when they enjoy that. You need to understand they enjoy it. They enjoy when you try to humiliate them and you express anger toward them. They enjoy that a lot because they already hate themselves a lot and they're already full of bitterness and negativity and hatred and anger a lot. Your best weapon against people who are enemies who call themselves leftists, your best weapon is to just be like Volk Vulture. First of all, be like Volk Vulture. Just focus on the substance of why they're wrong on all the principles and all the theory. That's the most important thing. Fight for the principles, fight for truth, fight for what actually, because they're upset at us that we use similar labels as them. So fight for the integrity of the label. You know, it's about al-haq, you know, the correct line. You fight for that like Volk Vulture. The second thing is when they're ridiculous. Sometimes you don't have to point it out explicitly. Let everyone see. You can just reply by describing them back to them what they are. And then the third thing, just say Allah Cosmos Xi Jinping. You know, that's also a great one. But you can't treat leftists and the right wing the same way. When there are enemies, you can't treat them the same way. I'm not a moralist at all. That's why a lot of people have trouble with what I'm saying here. I have to be honest, if you're a man and you have this struggle with what I'm saying, get your testosterone levels checked because you have a very hormonally motivated imbalance in you that makes you either want to go full woke 1.0 moralizing, like extremely pretentious, like insufferable, like woke 1.0 type of person with glasses who's like posturing how superior they are, or you want to posture in an opposite direction and vice signal how unwoke you are and how free you are from the constraints of the political correctness of liberal leftists. When the thing that I ask you to do is to actually be moral, not posture at all, to actually demonstrate, materially speaking, what correct behavior is, and to actually materially and really be moral and be morally superior is a lot more than just posturing. It's about how you actually treat people. It's about why you treat people the way you do in the first place and how you do it. Everything I'm saying is based on the premise that woke 1.0 is dead. It is dead. Like, I'm not so much responding to woke 1.0 right now. Madeline Pendleton, she said something recently about, oh, you know, this is the victory of woke. We successfully pressured them into accepting us. And it's like, well, hate to disappoint you, but that's not what I'm talking about. Your woke 1.0, like, already is dead. It's been dead for years. Only crazy people on Blue Sky actually, like, believe in that stuff. I'm mainly responding to the depravity of the post-woke. The Infrawoke is a response to that, because now we're faced with a profound moral vacuum. Listen, if you're going to be in our movement, I want to tell you something. For those of you who want to vice signal how unwoke you are, you're just admitting to the world you're a pussy. You want to know why? You will never be as unwoke as the edgy neo-Nazis on X. You'll never be as edgy as they'll be. Think about it. You'll never spam the hard R N-word and it posts mutilated limbs and talk about how you want to chainsaw minorities. Like, you won't do that. You'll never take it that far. So what? You only want to take it 50%? No, if that's your spectrum, if you're on that spectrum, take it 100% if that's what you want to fucking do. So you could expose yourself as a fucking edgy retard. You could also alternatively just distinguish yourself from that spectrum entirely. Our response to woke 1.0 never was that we want to embrace total depravity. It's that we didn't like their hypocrisy. The secret to infrared is that we're Shia. We're Shia. We never wanted to give up Islam. We don't hate Islam. We're Shia. We think that the rulers of Islam are munafiq. Meaning the rulers of the left are hypocrites. But when did we say we want to embrace the right? Or the equivalent would be the kufar, the pagans. Do we want to embrace the pagans? No. We're Shia. Our problem with Woke 1.0 is our problem with Yazid. Or our problem with Wahhabis. We're Shia. That's the basis of our opposition. You know who was a Shia? Marx was a Shia when he fought the young Hegelians. You know who was a Shia? Lenin was a Shia when he fought the Second International. You want to know who was a Shia? Sheikh Stalin was a Shia. You want to know why? When he fought the deviations within the party of hypocrites, the Trotskyite hypocrites, the hypocrites, Bukharin. Stalin was a Shia. He was fighting the hypocrites, Yezhov, Yagoda. These people who used the name of the party to persecute and oppress the masses. Stalin hated them. Stalin wrote Dizzy with Success when these hypocrites would go into villages and dismantle church bells and terrorize the people. Stalin opposed them. You're saying you're using our great faith for abuse. You're a hypocrite. You know who was a Shia? Mao Zedong was a Shia. Same thing. When he launched the Cultural Revolution against the hypocrites within the Communist Party. All of the main figures of Marxism-Leninism were Shia, meaning they were never anti-communists. They were waging the internal jihad with Zulfikar. The internal jihad doesn't mean that they're anti-communist. It means you understand the struggle is always within. And so that is the foundation and that's the basis of our opposition from day one to Woke 1.0, is that we just hated their hypocrisy. We didn't necessarily hate the notion of principles of respecting human dignity and some kind of moral authority, you know? A rejection of animalistic depravity, a rejection of trying to humiliate and brutalize people for its own sake. We've always rejected that. That was the basis of our opposition to Woke 1.0. It was never the same thing as the right wing. I just want to be clear about that. So, no, Madeline, I'm sorry to tell you, it's not what you think. I'm sorry to disappoint you. Infrawoke is something very different, and I even think Infrawoke is something that I think a lot of the Woke 1.0 blue sky hanger-ons would have preferred us to be Matt Walsh anti-woke types. They're going to hate Infrawoke a lot. They're going to hate it even more than whatever we are now. Because Infrawoke is the same thing as Dark Mali. We need a kind of morality that has substance to it. It's not just based on an empty sense of superiority of the self. We need a morality that presupposes having passed through the stage of the luminous black. The stage of luminous black, it's a complete annihilation of the ego. And it's an embrace of the Jesus of one's being in the deepest part of your heart. But we're not like these other leftists, okay? But how do you actually pull people in? How do you inspire them? Most people already aren't leftists. Our job is to inspire people, not just vice signal how different we are from other leftists, but to pull them in. Yes, it helps that we don't have these bad qualities and characteristics that liberal leftists have, but it's not even 1% enough. All of your energy should be going into articulating how we have the best aesthetics, the best morality, the best purpose, the best way of inspiring purpose in people, the best morale, obviously the best activity as a party. I mean, that's a given. The best alternative, the best vision, the best way of making sense of reality, the best spiritual aura. Like, that's what's important. And when you guys focus your attention on cultivating those things, spiritual cultivation, then when you interact with Pendletons in the future, you will do so from a position, a much better position than now. We need to make other people feel guilty for not being as woke as us, not the reverse. Like, people try to make us feel guilty for not being woke. And I understand, I'm guilty of this too. We reach for our hand and we double down. We're just like, okay, fuck you, bitch. I'm going to vice signal how unwoke I am. But I kind of feel like what we should do instead, in a lot of ways, when they try to like morally tell us how unwoke we are for anything, wallah, everyone listen to me. I'm not gonna say it until I know there's uniformity of the cult. Everyone is fucking listening to me right now. It's not a fucking joke. You listen to me now, you follow my fucking word. I swear to you, anytime somebody tries to come at you from a position of moral superiority who's a liberal leftist, you need to turn it against them. You need to be the moral one. You need to show them, actually, this is your moral fault. You are the one who is morally fallen. You are the one who is morally inferior. You are the one who is morally lacking. You need to radiate and emanate moral aura and authority. Okay, like a mystical kind. The charisma of Ali, you need to be like that. You need to be like a Shia. You need to actually have that aura. I'm not talking about pretentiousness. I'm not talking about a self-congratulatory, egotistical sense of superiority. I'm trying to say you make them feel guilty. You attack their conscience. You point out their flaws and evil. They're hypocrites. When you hold the sword of Ali, Zulfikar is a sword. It has two blades at the end of it. You want to know what the two blades symbolize? The form and the content of reality. You hold up that sword and you disembowel the enemy by revealing their hypocrisy. This sword is about slaying the hypocrites. Despite that they come at us from a position of moral superiority, they are guilty. My line of attack is very simple, but you are aligned with the DSA, Zionist Democrats. They're going to respond and they go, no. I also criticize the DSA. No, you criticize them, but you don't cancel people friends with them. When someone announced they joined DSA, you don't cancel them. You don't say they're dangerous. You don't say these people are evil and dangerous fascists. What is not fascism but genocide in Gaza? Why is there no guilt by association? Why the double standard? We're Shia. We're not here to concede any ground to them. No moral ground should be conceded. What was Stalin's orders? Not one step back. Same thing when it comes to moral ground. Not one step back. You say they're a bigot. Tell them that they are chauvinistic toward the people of Gaza, the people of Iran, the people of the world who are victimized by U.S. imperialism. Because you consider such trifling matters more important than the lives of children being slaughtered and starved abroad. Do not even address the question of whether words can be justified or not. It's a trifling matter that means nothing. You instead focus on the meat and potatoes. You're a hypocrite. You're a chauvinist. Only chauvinists could have the privilege of focusing on some triflingly small matters. Someone who's pro-transgender but sympathetic toward NATO, you forgive them. But someone who's anti-transgender and who's anti-NATO, you crucify them. No, it should be the opposite, actually, because what's more important? The thing that's more important, doesn't matter what you think about transgenderism. Of course, the important thing is U.S. imperialism. You see how you should never concede the moral high ground. Ever. That's Infrawoke. Okay, so I can explain Infrawoke. So Infrawoke is very simple. So there's something called the unconscious. We don't need to be obscure or mystical about it. There's a deep embedded reality which we do not articulate consciously, but which we nonetheless partake in. There is a human reality that we partake in, which we are not consciously aware of, but which nonetheless defines in a large part of who we are. And Woke 1.0 was mainly about bringing that reality to light and colonizing it by consciousness. Consciousness colonizes the unconscious. And any trace of the unconscious has to be declared evil and fascist and whatever, because we don't trust it. We don't trust material reality. We think that if something exists materially outside of our control, it's depraved. And this comes from Calvinism. Why does everyone think North Korea is a crazy, loony country? Because North Korea is not under the control of the U.S. empire. And North Korea is its own thing. So we just assume the worst things are happening there because it's not subjected under the liberal hegemony of the U.S. empire, which alone enforces human rights and morality and so on. So we see North Korea as this wilderness where, of course, there's this malign sovereign dictator who's abusing all of his power, because why wouldn't he? Because this is a world of total depravity. Everything outside of our control and what's familiar to us is necessarily hostile and evil. This paradigm in general that everything that's in the dark is bad and is evil, I think it comes from Calvinism, and that explains the pendulum, the Pendleton, if you will, of the cycles of woke and dark in this country. During the dark eras, what ends up happening is that we concede the premise that what's in the dark is evil and bad, but there's this nihilistic fatalism that says, but nonetheless, we cannot resist it. So we have to just accept that we live in a world of total depravity and embrace the evil consciously. But listen to me carefully. Listen to my words very carefully right now. During the great darkenings that happen across U.S. history, right, which happens in the early 20th century, late 19th century, again, social Darwinism, eugenics, but then ambiguously you also had Jack London and stuff. But nonetheless, what was the point of the great darkenings? Trying to get ahead of the depravity of the material world by vice signaling how much you're okay with it and are aligned with it is another way of trying to save yourself from being defined by the external material reality. It's a way of preserving the integrity of the sovereign self from material reality. In other words, in the same way that great awakenings are about establishing colonial outposts of moral absolute purity under your absolute control so that alone is what's right and what's good, great darkenings are about protecting yourself by embracing evil. If you embrace evil, you cannot be victimized by it. You know the cliche of like in psychobabble, popular psychobabble, where they're like,
I hurt them because I didn't want to be hurt by them. And it was my defense mechanism because I'm always getting hurt all the time. And if I push them away first, then they can't hurt me.
It's like, that's what the great darkenings are. That's what the one we're in now is, basically. It's a form of subjective preemption. By vice signaling and blackpilling so much and talking about how much you're like ahead of all of it, and okay, I embrace the racism, I embrace the depravity, I embrace all of the evil, you're also preempting subjectively the possibility that reality could ever disappoint you in any kind of way or contradict you. The main thing is you don't want to be contradicted by material reality. So it leads to an opposite extreme of presuming the worst onto material reality, meaning you give it no benefit of the doubt at all, because every benefit of the doubt is simultaneously a vulnerability that could come to threaten the integrity of the sovereign subjective self. Okay, think about incels. That's the best example. Incels are basically like, I know for a fact all bitches are evil. I know it. They're all voids. They all are whores, and they're all bad, and they're all evil. Wait a second. A lot of women are actually quite good. They're quite fine, though. Some are good, actually. No! Why do they have to say all of them are bad, right? And you could say maybe the same about an extreme feminist who hates men. It's the same thing. But let's focus on the incel. Why do they have to believe they're all bad? Because it's a way to protect themselves, in a way, right? It's like, well then, because if they're all bad, there's not even a single hope I can cling to where I open myself to the possibility that this alienation I have with reality might be overcome. Maybe I can find a relationship with a nice woman. When you eliminate that possibility, you're basically guaranteeing that you've established a form of subjectivity that can never be disappointed. Because the same benefit of the doubt that you extend to reality, to the outside reality, is the same one that's a vulnerability that maybe could disappoint you somehow, maybe could threaten the integrity of your sovereign self. So this is the great darkening, right? That's why on X everyone's so edgy all the time. That's basically it. It's the black pill. And so, what is Infrawoke? Well, I'll tell you. To see beyond the visible spectrum. What is it we need to be awake toward? We need to be awake toward a thing without annihilating it. So our Sheikh Karl Marx. How does Sheikh Karl Marx complete the system of German idealism? He resigns. He says it's correct. And that is exactly why I will accept before me now on the street the proletariat. This thing that we've raised to consciousness comprehensively, we've only done so to reveal the thing that was here all along. All this time. Now we can accept it and recognize its brilliance. He called the proletariat the ingenious soil of the people. Sheikh Karl Marx accepts Infrawoke, but the conclusion of his wakefulness is to be at peace with the material. And this peace is revolutionary because it means actually the proletariat is this ingenious soil of the people. It itself is already this. We don't need to take it and turn it into this systematic idea of man. Man is already brilliant. So this Infrawoke is about resignation. Just like you cannot choose who your parents are. You cannot choose what species you belong to. You cannot choose the circumstances of your own birth. You need to be at peace with that. That's Infrawoke. Meaning just because you are awake to something doesn't mean you've mastered the thing. It's about gratitude. When you wake up, for example, to a family member. All this time I've taken my family members for granted. But then suddenly you wake up and you realize, you know what? I'm grateful for this thing I've taken for granted. Now I can actually appreciate what it is. It's like, in a sense, that's Infrawoke. If you can carve out a space of peace in this very evil system we live in, you finally have something to fight for and defend, and you have a ground to stand upon with which you can challenge this wicked system. There's a brilliance, that we've taken for granted, but there's a way forward. There is something we can do. We have the mandate of heaven. We just need to wake up to it. We can go forward. We do have a fighting chance. You understand? And yes, we can fight. We can fight, but fighting presupposes having something to fight for. Can you see the mandate of heaven in the starry sky above? You can't. It's infinite. But once you do fucking see it, you're like, wow, I'm locked the fuck in. I got this shit.